Welcome, Luis, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you as a guest on our podcast. Luis is a big inspiration to me. He's a coach, mentor, facilitator, a strategic advisor for major global companies, and I really admire and trust him. Luis, you cannot imagine how much I love our long conversations. You always challenge me to think big and push my boundaries. Your generosity in sharing your expertise and know-how with someone like me who's just starting my journey as an independent professional is priceless. I feel incredibly lucky to have you by my side. So thank you so much, Luis. So let's start. Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, Teresa, thank you. First of all, thanks. It's a huge privilege to join you, and it's certainly to be one of the first people you've invited to join you on this very beautiful initiative that you're launching. Um, there are lots of similar initiatives out there, but to be able to bring together the kinds of people that you're bringing together and to engage in the kinds of conversations that you're having, for me, it's a wonderful privilege. As you well say, when we get together for coffee, our conversations go on for hours, and it's usually hard to kind of break away from those conversations. So I'm very grateful, and I'm very happy to be here. Um, so who am I? Well, I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a friend. I value tremendously and enjoy tremendously my friends. Um, I'm somebody who's incredibly privileged. I'm privileged to have a life and have built a life doing something that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly grateful. Every morning I get up I'm forever amazed, and I'm very grateful that year after year, and some of them for 15, 20, 25 years, I have wonderful clients who become friends and who continue to work with me. Um, but beyond the things that define me as who I am, I mean, there certainly are things that I do as well. So I'm as you started by saying, I'm a coach, and for me, coaching is about working with people so they become the best versions of themselves. I'm a mentor, and I'm somebody who enjoys working and guiding people through complexity and looking for the best way to deal with uncertainty. I'm a strategic advisor. I'm a leadership developer. I'm a networker.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who focuses and works mostly with the CEO and the executive committee. I typically work with Fortune 100 companies. Um, Born in Portugal, grew up in the US. So I'm a product of very, very different cultures. I spend my time traveling around the world. My clients are global, um, and kind of spend my time between Barcelona and New York. So that's kind of, in a bit of a nutshell, kind of gives you a bit of
Yeah.
a feel for who I am and where I spend my time.
Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. And what motivated you to move from a successful career in strategic consulting to focus on coaching and advising leaders and senior leaders?
So I started out back in the late '70s, working strategy, and in the end of the '80s, early '90s, I chose to move away from consulting and strategic consulting,
Yeah,
and move away into the world that I've been in since 1990. Um, and basically, that has to do with two things. I mean, the first one is um, um, my belief that everything starts and ends with people.
yeah,
It really doesn't matter how much technology we bring into the fore. It doesn't matter how much strategy we build. It doesn't matter how much complexity we bring. Um, at the end of the day, it's people self-aware, interested in truly engaging in a conversation and listening to each other and collaborating. That's what's going to make the difference. And so for me, it became more and more important uh, to work with people. To People are at the core of creating value. Ultimately, the very complex problems and issues we're dealing with in the world we live in will be solved and will be addressed by people. So people will change the world. They will change society. They
Yeah.
will make the world we live in a better world. So my shift was very much about shifting from working with things to working with people.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And from this working for people, you also wrote a book that I have here in front of me. Uh, you have recently written it. What inspired you to write it?
Well, it's actually a funny story because I wasn't writing a book. If I'm honest with you, I was
What happened? Tell us. You're a storyteller.
no,
Uh,
I I work. I I spend my time both. My relationship with the many people I work with is characterized by formal connections and formal sessions and work we do, by working with their management teams, and by working informally on the day to day. And so my thought was, well, I better pull together a set of
yeah.
ideas and a set of concepts, and gather them in a PDF, so that people that I work with can actually read through it, and
Mm-hmm.
so it makes our conversations easier to flow when they have some basic concepts. And so I pulled them together, and I shared them with a friend of mine who was also a CEO of a company, and and next thing you know, he had taken it upon himself to turn that PDF into a book. Um, and uh, and so I looked at him and I said, what do I do with this? Uh, and so, I mean, in one way or another, it's become a bit of a resource that I use with friends and colleagues, and people I work with. Um, but it's actually quite therapeutical, because when we sit down to write, it forces us to actually think and feel, and to connect who we are and what we do, and
Mm,
make sense of it all. And the exercise is actually quite helpful to
totally.
to make sense and to bring clarity into what we do, into who we are. And so it's been a good process. It's been useful.
So your book was, when I was reading it, your book is full of great frameworks that help me to outline the path to leadership. Once I start reading it, I couldn't stop. And I was wondering if you could share a particularly powerful story or example that illustrates authentic leadership in action.
So there are there are many, when you think about it, um, a CEO of a global company,
Yes.
um, uh, he or she typically works with a team who is a virtual team.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who first, they sit in different countries. They are not physically sitting in the same place. Secondly, they are people who come from different national cultures. Um, Thirdly, they typically are of different generations these days. I mean, they're no longer within the same generation, so they tend to be quite
Mm-hmm.
different generations. There are people who come from very different backgrounds. So you'll find, finance people, HR people, commercial people, production
Mhm.
people, and so on. Um, and and they come together very, very, very seldom, physically. And human beings are social animals, so we need the physical contact in order to build relationships and in order to build meaning together. Um,
Mhm.
when we work exclusively in a remote way,
Yeah.
we tend to miss tremendously the ability to build empathy, and we build empathy by coming together as
Mm.
as a collective, as a tribe. Um, so the example of an executive committee or any other kind of team that tends to work remotely, that tends
Mm.
to spend time away from each other, is a very, very good example of when authentic leadership becomes a key element. Um, Authentic leadership is very much about very much about one becoming and being true to oneself. It's very much about self-awareness. It's very much about the being rather than the doing, right?
Yes.
So as executives, as people who lead enterprise, whether we are leading enterprise as a business owner or as an executive in a
Mhm.
Fortune 100 company, we do two things. We manage, and management is a science. We manage things, we manage policies, we manage processes, we manage
Mhm.
systems, we manage technology, we manage
Whatever. Yeah.
infrastructure. Those are things that we manage.
Yeah.
Things don't feel, things are stable, things are controllable. And we lead people. And,
Mm.
uh, and whilst management is a science, leadership is an art. And as an art, it's very much based on behaviors. It's very much based on how I bring together tremendous diversity of people and get
Mhm.
them to trust, get them to collaborate, get them to communicate, get them to engage productively, get them to build value together. Now, unless as a leader I am coming at this from a position of authenticity, of being true to oneself, of being real, of being empathic, of being able to stop, truly observe, listen, and engage with others from a position of being a good person who truly cares about what is going on in the room.
Yeah.
It is very, very difficult.
It's so difficult. Yes. You're right.
And even more difficult if those teams are virtual teams, if
Yeah.
those teams are multiculturally and cross-culturally very different teams, if those teams have to deal with uncertainty, which is very much something that we live with today, if they have to deal with complexity, if they have to deal with exponential change, if they have to deal with um, um, immediacy, the kind of fast uh, um, environment we tend to live with, if they have to deal with diversity, um, unless you're coming at it from a position of being very authentic and very clear about
Yeah.
what to expect, then it's very, very difficult to operate.
Yeah, you're right. And here in this book, you are underlining what are the tips to overcome all those different situations that you are describing, right? So, about uncertainty, complexity, exponential change, immediacy, diversity. This is the what all the book is about. And could you maybe, with all your extensive experience, could you share with us some common pitfalls or mistakes to avoid when designing and implementing change as a leaders? Because at the end of the day, when you are leading, as you said, it's very different from management. But when you are leading people, we tend to have those kind of pitfalls. Um, what are those and how to overcome it?
So there definitely there are significant. There are a number of pitfalls that I think we need to be aware of. Um, I think the first one is that we're very good at creating statements of intentions. We're
Yeah.
very good at creating strategies. We're very good at creating project layouts. We're very good at creating what I call the letter to Santa. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're very good at creating what we want to do, and then I think by nature we're very good at philosophy. We're good at talking about the high level picture.
Yes.
Um, I think one of the pitfalls and one of the things that we need to be careful about is when we then need to connect the statement of intentions into execution. The conversation when I start looking when I'm working with a team and we talk about what the strategy looks like and what we want to do, what the project is going to look
Mm-hmm.
like, and I
Mm-hmm.
say, right, so now how do we execute this? Now, when we start talking about execution, the conversation becomes very thin. And
Yeah.
when we start talking about execution excellence, it becomes even thinner.
Yeah.
Um, we have tremendous difficulty to bring things down into
Mm.
practicality and to making things clear as to how do we execute. So that there's one pitfall on designing and implementing change, if you like. No.
Totally.
Um, Second one I
Um,
would say is there's a tremendous need to break down complexity, um,
mm.
and so um, do things in ways that are clear, that are simple, and that are agile.
Yeah.
Um, I'm forever fascinated. This happens to me quite frequently. I work with my clients year after year after year after year, and quite often when there are consultants and teams of consultants that are coming in, they tend to ask me, "Can you help us out and see what's going on and what they're doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And you look at project plans and so on that will tend to go on and on and on. You look at project plans that you need first to go and do a master's in order to be able to understand what the heck it is that we're going to be doing. So you know there are some fundamental things we need to be able to do if we are going to successfully implement change. One
Yeah.
of them is get people to understand it.
Yes.
Get people to understand it. Then get people to own it. Get people to own it. Make it theirs. Then activate it, and then accelerate it. Right?
Yeah.
So understand what the heck it is we want to do. Own the process. Activate it, and then accelerate it.
Yeah.
This needs to be done in a way that is clear,
Yeah.
simple, and
Yeah.
very agile. Those are important things.
Yeah. These are those four steps that you say it like so simple to move forward, but it's so difficult, and
The,
to align all the team towards it. It's so complex. It's not
it tends to
easy.
be very complex, but the interesting thing is, you see, I think we live in a world where somebody
Yeah.
said that if it's not complex and if it doesn't have complex words attached to it, it's not important. And I tend to say to people, if a 7-year-old child can't understand it, then we're in the wrong business and we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Um, Bring the team around the table and make sure that things are said, meant, explained, felt in ways that are so simple, that are so clear, that everyone across the organization buys into it, understands it, and says, "Wow, okay, yeah, that I understand
Totally.
because
Yeah.
that I can work with, that I can work with." And and then there's a pitfall that I think is probably the most common and the most complex thing we tend to deal with. And that's the one thing that I think most of the Fortune 100 companies struggle with. Um, when we're talking about implementing change. We are very, very good at working functionally. Now,
Mm-hmm.
working functionally means
Yeah.
um, vertically, right?
Yeah.
So,
The
uh,
same function. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting that, and I usually say no when I'm called to these things because I just don't believe in them. But the HR department gets together to do their retreat, and they ask me to go in and facilitate it. And I look at them
Yeah.
and I, guys, please don't do that. Don't ask me to come in and do this. Why? Because I know you do good work in the same way that the finance function does good work, and in the same way that the commercial people do
Yeah.
good
When we are together, we are very aligned very easily.
work. We speak the same language, we have the
Yeah,
same
totally.
culture, we love each other, we
Yeah.
understand each other very, very well. This is not where the impediments happen when we're trying to promote and to execute change across the company.
Yeah.
Problems happen and the issues happen in the seams. They happen when in the connectors. They happen in those points where we need to collaborate with each other.
Mm.
So it is in those areas where we come together, that's where the issues happen. So if you're going to bring people together from various different areas who speak
Diverse.
very different languages, who have different motivations, who don't understand and don't see things in the same way. So the other day in a session in an executive committee, I asked one of the people that were supporting us in building it to get a bicycle painted white and put it in the center of the room. And we took out all the tables, we just had a circle of chairs, and we had a bicycle in the center of the room. And I started by asking somebody, can you please describe the bicycle to me? And they looked at me and they went, what do you mean? And I said, okay, so let me start. Um, I see a bicycle that's electrical because I live in Barcelona, and Barcelona has hills, and you got to go up to Zona Alta, and that means that at my age, if I've got a bit of an electrical bicycle, that's going to help me when I start going up the hill.
Yeah.
And so another guy says to me, "Oh no, okay, I see what you mean." So I use the bicycle to do road biking, and I go out with my friends on the weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's a sports bike, and somebody else says, "Oh, okay, no." So for me, that's one of those um, foldable bicycles, and I ride one to the office, and then I fold it and I take it upstairs with
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
somebody said to me, "Well, and I love Amsterdam, and for me, it's the big wheel bicycles and so on." And I said, "Great. So you've understood that a bicycle has different interpretations
Yeah.
depending of your own experience, uh, um, um, of your own background, and of your own day to day, and how you look at it. The lenses you use to look at the bicycle
Yeah.
shift. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what happens when you bring people from different backgrounds and from different mindsets within the team. That becomes really, really productive. So, one of the pitfalls when we are looking at change tends to be that we continue to look at people and we continue to try to gather people
Yeah.
um, who are in of the same mindset because
Okay.
that's their comfort zone. My comfort zone is to gather with people that are my friends. So
Okay.
Christmas parties at the company. Who do you gather with? You call
Yeah.
me
Your friends.
your friends. That's great,
Yeah.
but that's a pitfall because
Yeah.
I need you to socialize with are those people that don't speak your language, don't speak your culture,
Yeah.
those people who are not the people you operate with in the day to day, because those are the ones that will enable you to build seamlessness. Value in the company is built by bringing together different people. Change
Mm-hmm.
happens when we bring together different people. So breaking through the functionality and into the cross becomes really, really important. So those are some of the pitfalls and
Yeah.
some of the
Totally.
issues that I think that we're looking at.
Yeah. And now that you talk about those diverse teams, I was impressed to find out that you have lived and worked in the USA, in Canada, in London, and now in Barcelona. So how have these cultural experiences so diverse influenced your approach to coaching and advising seniors leaders?
Well, it's interesting. I'm Portuguese born,
Yeah.
American raised, and the past 20 years married and live in Barcelona, and I spent about 150 flights a year, and I spend my life working around the world. So
With a lovely Catalan lady.
with a wonderful Catalan woman who has infinite patience to put up with me. Um, some of the things that I learned, and some of the things that I think become quite important. The first one is about bias.
Yeah.
Um, um, people who say to me, "Oh no, no, I have no biases." They lie.
Not true.
We
Right.
all we all have bias.
Yeah.
Acknowledging bias and bringing bias into the conversation is key. Is important. Um, because the moment we acknowledge biases and the moment we bring biases into the conversation, what we are doing is bringing reality and honesty into the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And I think that has become really important, it's become really key
Yeah.
in the work that I do. The second one is about um, um, uh, empathic listening.
Yeah. So important.
Um, the concept of listening where you listen way beyond the words, way beyond the music, way beyond the dance. It's not about the words, it's not about tone, it's not about the body language, it's about the intention, it's about the energy, it's about how you put yourself into the other person's shoes. It's about
Yeah.
way more than what they are
Right.
trying to tell you. Um, and when you're working globally, and quite often in the room, when you have such diversity, you need to be rather than do. You need to be the kind of person who wants to listen empathically and who does it, which is the third thing, from a position of generosity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, we live in a world where uh, we all need to be right.
Yeah.
We all need to we all want to be listened to. We all need to be right. And so often, um, uh, what's truly important isn't what you say; it's how you ask things. It's the quality of the questions that builds the conversation. The
Mm-hmm.
curiosity to listen to someone else's point of view, and to try to put yourself into their shoes and to try to understand the why they're saying this, why they
Mm-hmm.
feel this way. Um, when you work globally, cross culturally, um, when you embrace diversity,
Yeah.
um, being generous, listening empathically, asking good questions, and acknowledging bias become key if you want to be productive, if you want to be
Mm-hmm.
useful, and those
And
those
more
are
creative as well. And more creative.
absolutely, and those are some important lessons.
Yeah. And I'm also curious to know because you are a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. And what trends do you foresee in the field of leadership over the next few years?
So um, I see us moving into a space of being more a space of being rather than doing. Um,
So relevant. Tell
it,
us more. Yeah.
it's interesting. uh, I'll give you an example, which I think is it happens to all of us. Um, I do a lot of retreats with my people, with my many teams that I work with. So 2, 3, 4 times a year we do management team retreats.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm ever working with a new team or if the team has been reconfigured, so one of the exercises I like to do with people is to when we come together to look at each other and to say, well, tell me who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that somebody usually volunteers and they start talking and they start telling me what they do.
Uh-huh.
And I say, no, don't tell me what you do. Tell me who you are.
So difficult, this question.
And then they tell me what they do. And I say, no, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Let's try this again. Who are you? Tell me what you do.
Wow. Yeah. I love it.
Being is difficult.
Yeah.
Being is difficult. We have created a society that is so uncertain, so complex, so fast, so immediate that everything is about doing. We get up in the morning,
Yeah.
we get out there, we do, we come back home, we sleep, we get up in the morning, we get out there and we do.
And
Um,
yeah, we are paid for that.
you know, but
Yeah. And that's our measure. Our measure is that.
the funny thing is that when most people are contracted, they are told that they're paid to think. Right? They are paid, senior execs or people across many branches in the company. We lie to them because we're telling them that, I'm paying you because you've got a good head on your shoulders, you've got experience, and
Yeah.
I want you to come in and help us solve complex issues. So that means that I need you to think. One of the things that happens, I think it happens to all of us. The other day I was in a conference and I was saying this, somebody will send me an email, and then almost at the same time they'll send me a WhatsApp telling me that they've just sent me an email, and then they'll call me to say that they've just sent me an email. And I go, guys,
Hurry up. Hurry up.
give me a chance, right?
Yeah.
And when I get your email, I'd like the time to be able to read it, reflect, and
Yeah.
reply to you. So
Yeah.
the immediacy, the fast pace means that we're all very, very focused on doing. Now,
Yes.
I think one of the trends is becoming more and more the trend on being.
Mm.
And being is hard. It requires work. It means that I need to stop and reflect, and I need to become self-aware, and I
Yeah.
need to work on things that have to do with who I am. Um,
Mm.
Being a good person doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
And if you're not a good person, you can't be a good leader.
Yeah.
If you don't like people, you can't be a good leader. If you don't have patience, you can't be a good leader. There's all of these things that have to do with the being. And
Mhm.
so um, it's interesting. Most senior executives were built to deal with the world of certainties.
Yeah.
When I started working way back in the late 70s, strategic plans were built for 15 years. Now they're built for 5 minutes because things happen at such a fast pace, whether
Yeah.
they're geopolitical, whether they are environmental, things change
Technology.
so
Yeah.
rapidly. Technology changes,
Totally.
they are exponentially changing. It
Yeah.
means that as a leader, I no longer operate from a position of certainties. I
Yeah.
am being asked to decide in the moment, quite often with very little information, and information that was relevant yesterday and today is no longer relevant
Totally.
because significant things have changed.
Hmm.
Unless I am the kind of person who is quite centered, and unless I have tremendous clarity, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to surround myself with the kind of people that I can interact with, that I can build team with, that I
Yeah.
can help myself learn from, and to be able to operate as a leader. That's going to be
Yeah.
tremendous. The other thing is the kind of leader that who is tremendously humble, um,
Yeah. Mm.
vulnerable. Uh,
Yeah.
the the you know I'm somebody who enjoys tremendously working with women leaders who have come out of environments where vulnerability has been very much part of their growth environment. I work with a very senior. She's chairwoman and CEO of one of the Fortune 100s. She's
Yeah.
also a mother and grandmother, and
Wow.
and she often says to me, um, you know, I learned about vulnerability raising children and grandchildren.
Yes.
She
That's
says,
beautiful.
because it's uncertainty, and because it's seeing moments of tremendous joy and great sadness,
Yeah.
and that has helped me to then come into the world of business and understand that the people you're dealing with have lives, they have projects,
Totally.
and
Totally.
if you're prepared to be vulnerable, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, I think as we move forward, we are going to be confronted with the kinds of decisions and the kinds of moments that require that tremendous vulnerability and tremendous generosity on the part of leaders. And if we look at it, as we move into a world where AI, where technology and
Mm.
AI
Mm-hmm.
will have a bigger and bigger and bigger footprint, this will require that human beings and leaders, as human as leaders, be more and more human,
Totally.
more
Yeah.
and more,
You're right.
because we need to counterbalance and we
Yeah.
need to continue to build an equilibrium with
Totally.
AI. AI brings tremendous promise and tremendous opportunities, but also it brings a lot of light, but also a lot of shadows.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
leadership
And
will need
yeah,
to be there, and will need to bring that kind of balance and that kind of
to bring
equilibrium.
that balance. Totally. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. And going to another topic, you have traveled around all the world. Tomorrow you are leaving for New York. Last week, you were calling me from Tegucigalpa, and I thought to myself, oh, where's that? I didn't know. So, how do you manage to stay updated and continue growing professionally with all those travels that you do?
Well, I a variety of things. I think the first one is I read. I read a lot. I think reading is
Yes.
becoming a lost art,
Yeah.
um,
So
and
true.
I think it's something that I find it important and find it useful. What do we read, and there's loads of information out there, but to be able to find the right things to read and to be able to read, I think is important. Um, I connect with people, and I tremendously enjoy good conversations.
Yeah.
I think
And I've been a testimony of it.
no, I think absolutely. I mean, people create meaning. Uh, we create meaning as human beings by coming together and engaging in conversation, by
Totally.
sharing different points of view. Quite often, that's how we learn, and quite often that's how we create new perspectives and new points of view. And so I talk with loads of people globally. I have conversations every day. Um, um, I'm somebody who I meditate.
Mhm.
I do a tremendous amount of work in terms of meditation, introspection, connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Um, I listen. I I observe. I ask lots of questions. Um,
Yeah.
I'm 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 somebody who loves to ask questions. I've always believed a good conversation is built not out of the answers, but out of the questions. And 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 perhaps the most important is this
Mhm.
sense of endless curiosity.
Yes.
We live in a beautiful world that
Mhm.
has so many different things, and we can learn uh, so much from so many different people, that if you have that endless sense
Yeah.
of curiosity,
There
uh,
is tons
learn
of resources. Sure.
they come from so many different places, and
Totally.
I think it's something that's very organic, right? You connect with one group and you have a conversation, you connect with somebody else, you have another one, and you connect with somebody else, and from that conversation you bring something and you leave it
Mm.
here, and from this conversation you take something and you leave it there, and that shapes your
Totally.
point of view, that shapes who you are.
Yeah.
Uh, But it's
I love that concept about those conversations, and I love when I practice it with you. And for sure that this is a kind of habit that we need to incorporate more in our day-to-day lives in order to, one thing that I love when we meet is that we can spend one morning, 3 hours, 4 hours, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Sometimes when I meet with other people, it's like, okay, we meet for 1 hour. At 11, I need to leave. And it's like, okay, what happens if we are having that nice conversation with this deep connection? It's so relevant.
So one of the interesting thing I many of the people I work with, and many of them we've worked for many years, um, when they're asked, what do you do with Lewis? And they will often say, it's hard to describe because a lot of it is about the conversation. So
Yeah.
I have people who say to me, the moments I spend with you are those moments where I can actually disconnect from the rat race, disconnect from the busyness, and actually stop to think and feel and have a conversation
Mm.
of things that are useful. Human beings, we're four things. We're actually four beings. We're intellectual,
Yeah.
we think, we analyze, we
Mm-hmm.
process, we question. We're emotional, we feel things, we feel
Yeah.
joy, we feel
Totally.
anger, we feel rage, we feel.
Mm-hmm.
We're spiritual. We ask ourselves deep questions about why do we exist and why we are here, why are we
Mm-hmm.
here? And we're physical. We eat well or not, we exercise, we sleep well, we take care of ourselves, and so on. Now, the interesting thing is that we build a society where most of the time we spend time in the intellectual space. We live from the neck up,
Yeah.
and
In
we spend
our head. Yeah.
our heads.
Yeah.
And we may
Focus on
spend
that.
time in the physical self. If we do some
Mm.
exercise, we get out running and so on. But we don't do a lot of work on finding the equilibrium between the four selves. When
Yeah.
we find the equilibrium between the four selves, most of the leaders I know that are the kind of authentic leaders that do well by engaging and by living
Mm.
well within themselves and with their people, they have good equilibrium in these four spaces.
Yeah.
Um, they, when we give ourselves the space, the time, the opportunity to actually stop and engage in a good conversation,
Yeah.
and to allow ourselves to let the conversation be not just about what I think, but also about what I feel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And those moments where we ask questions that go beyond the
Mm.
particular objective that we need to meet, but they actually go into spaces that are about the world we live in, and who are we and why do we exist and what does this mean.
Yeah.
um, those kinds of reflections, those kinds of spaces are the spaces that truly develop us and
Totally.
prepare us to deal with the world we live in. And
Totally.
um, and you can create that in a formal way, um, or you can just build a lifestyle that actually allows that to be part of who you
Mm.
are. The spaces you have with your friends and the spaces you have with your family and the spaces you have where you work,
Yeah.
how you build your environment at work and your environment with your teams, so that this kind of way of being and way of happening and way of working really becomes a
Mm.
natural piece of what we do and how we operate.
Totally. And it makes such a big difference when it happens.
A huge difference. A huge
It's
difference.
it's amazing. Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
one of the companies I work with,
Yeah.
um, people have tremendous pride and sense of ownership for the
Mm-hmm.
company. There's, if it's interesting. Some people even use the word love
Oh.
the
Mm-hmm.
company, um,
Wow.
and it's interesting. It's quite interesting because it's really heartfelt.
Yeah.
Um, and when you stop and think about it, It's not because they get paid more. It's not because they got more time off. It's because there is a leadership team, and then there are managers, and then there is an environment that is very conducive to people owning and living the company and what we do in a way that is very much their own, and they feel proud and they enjoy where they're at. Um,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science; it's common sense.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And okay, so one last question for today. And I'd like to ask if you could go back and give advice to your younger self at the start of your career, what would that be?
Well, Lisa, I would say to my younger self, do it all over exactly in the same way.
Yeah,
Do it exactly in the same way, especially the mistakes.
yeah,
Especially the mistakes. Hopefully and probably, if possible, do a lot more mistakes. Please do a lot
yeah.
more.
I love it. I love it.
I learn so much from my mistakes. I think my greatest source of learning is every day is from the mistakes I make, and so I would do exactly the same thing. I would do the same mistakes, more mistakes.
Yeah.
Um, I would. I think mistakes are a source of humbleness, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's wonderful to do a mistake, to learn, to ask for forgiveness. Those things are important. Um, I would say to my younger self, stay humble, be grateful. Um,
Yeah.
don't forget where you came from. Don't forget
Mm-hmm.
where you came from.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. So beautiful. So you're amazing. Okay, so thank you so much. It was great listening to you, Luis. I'm really grateful for your insights, your advice. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate it too. So it
Great.
was wonderful to have you in our podcast. Let's Design Change, the Blue Moon podcast. And I wish you the best in your future projects. And I cannot wait to hear about them. Thank you so much, Luis.
Thanks, Teresa. I look forward to our next topic.